Good afternoon, this is Jell. I just wanted to make a quick video on feminist criticism of video games. Firstly, we all know Anita Sarkeesian. She's pretty popular in the video game sphere and Gamergate. She, for those who don't know, she critiques video games and basically says why they're sexist. There are not there are no video games that are free from her criticism, and she will go after all of them. Firstly, it is her freedom of speech to do so. However, it is also my freedom of speech to criticize her criticism, and it's also my freedom of speech to think that she is a con woman. I'll get to that in a minute, but first I would like to say that I'm sure there are people who do send her death and rape threats, but everybody on the internet who's big gets death and rape threats, and I don't feel like that proves that video games cause misogyny. Secondly, she is pretty easily debunked. There are videos all around YouTube that you can find that debunk her videos. But basically, I would go so far as to say that a video game is not sexist unless there's only one of the women present. That's a criteria, and that woman is like a stereotype, like, I don't know, whatever you think a stereotype of a woman would be. I mean, there might be like games that would fit that criteria, but most games have more than one female, and a lot of them are pretty diverse. I suppose if a game had multiple female characters who all acted the same way, that would probably be sexist. But something that the Sark and her followers tend to ignore is that most of the time when you're playing video games, the enemies will be men, and you'll be shooting them, enemy after enemy after enemy, and most of them will be men, not all of them. For example, in BioShock, the splicers were a mix of men and women. I don't think Tannenbaum was an enemy, but she certainly existed, and so, that game isn't really... I don't think that would be considered sexist. Her criticism of video games also tends to leave out when you're punished for beating female characters. For example, in Hitman, if you decide to attack female prostitutes or strippers or whatever, you will lose points, which actually happened in her video in the Let's Play of it. Part of it. By the way, she doesn't actually play video games. She just takes Let's Play footage from other Let's Players. And obviously she would actually know stuff about video games if she did play them. Another thing is that she criticized Bayonetta for having a sexist character. However, Bayonetta does not fall into a stereotype. She's a very powerful woman. And she's very... what's the phrase? In charge of her sexuality, I suppose. And that's something that some feminists say they fight for, others say they fight against. So I'm not entirely sure what stance feminism has on that, but I think it should be good. I mean, a woman owning her sexuality sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And plus, there are other female characters in Bayonetta, from what I remember anyway. So, and they're all pretty diverse, if I've got this right. So that's pretty much, a moot point. Um, I think the only thing you could really criticize for sexism would be games like Lollipop Chainsaw, I suppose. And even then, it's not really like a serious game. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's not meant to be taken as a political stance against women or against cheerleaders or whatever. And her boyfriend is kind of a jerk, right? He's a stereotypical jock and he's kind of an ass. Yeah. So, it's hard to criticize games for sexism. And you have to keep into account every part of that game. You can't just say it's sexist. And what the Sark, Anita Sarkeesian, sorry, fails to let people know is that there are no studies that prove video games cause sexism. So, while video games may or may not be sexist, not all of them, of course, that wouldn't make any sense. Video gamers cannot automatically be sexist unless you have proof. I have looked for studies, but any ones that say they do, they all just say that the people play video games that they consider sexist, so that's not really the same thing. And also, plenty of studies show that violent video games increase morality in players, and they don't affect, they don't make them more violent or anything. So I would presume the same sort of, what's the word? The same sort of principle would be used for misogynistic video games. I used air quotes because there aren't a lot of misogynistic video games. And I'm sorry, but that's a truth. And if you think that most game protagonists are what's the word, cishet white males, you obviously don't play a lot of video games. And you should probably take a look at more than just Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row. And wait, you can choose to be a female character in the Saints Row games, and there are some pretty awesome female characters in the games, so you can't really count that either. So that's all I have. Well, that's all I wanted to say. My Tumblr, if you want to contact me, my Tumblr is 5-point palm exploding heart with dashes in between. My Twitter is at JEL2658, and you're on my YouTube, probably, which should be Justin L, or JEL2658, I'm not sure. If you want me to answer a question, leave it in the comments, or send me an ask on Tumblr, or just tweet me. If you want to talk about anything, I'm free most of the time. And if there's just something you want me to talk about on a video, go ahead and ask me, tweet me, or comment on this video or others. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again soon.